Hello and welcome to the Civil War Project, where I'm retracing Civil War history one person, place, and event at a time. Because the build-up to the Civil War is just as important as the war itself, I've created a weekly recap series that posts every Tuesday. This is your weekly recap for Monday, January 31st through Sunday, February 6th, 1859. For previous weeks, you'll find them on my channel under the weekly recap playlist. So, let's talk history. At Camp Floyd, Utah, Major General John F. Reynolds writes a letter to his sisters back home. Reynolds comes from a military family in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. His family has known President James Buchanan a long time. It was then Senator Buchanan in 1837 who got Reynolds into West Point Military Academy, where he graduated 26th in his class of 50. He fought in the Mexican War, where he received 2 promotions due to bravery and leadership skills. He's been stationed in Utah since 1856. He writes that the days are monotonous and responds to the family news the sisters had sent to him last fall. He also expresses doubt that Congress will accomplish anything this winter. He hopes they at least pass the Pacific Railroad bill, which, unknowing to him, had just been pronounced dead last week. He ends the letter with "Give my love to all, your affectionate brother, John F. Reynolds." John Brown, his men, and 11 freedom seekers, make that 12, as freedom seeker Mrs. Daniels has given birth to a baby boy that she and her husband name after John Brown, have been traveling in covered wagons from Lawrence, Kansas to Topeka. They have stopped at a log house owned by Albert Fuller for the night, as rains have made the roads difficult. One of Brown's men, Aaron Dwight Stevens, enlisted as a volunteer and served in the Mexican War. He is the only one with military experience. He was also the man who shot an enslaver back in December when he was trying to rescue a young female enslaved person. With the freedom seekers safely in the cabin, Stevens takes his horse down to the creek for some water. Out of nowhere, 2 young men on horseback approach him. "Have you seen any slaves around here?" they asked. Calmly, Stevens says, "Yes, there are some over there at the cabin now. I'll take you over there." One of the young men goes back to the cabin with Stevens while the other stays behind with the horses. Stevens takes his time to fidget with his own horse so that those in the cabin have time to prepare. Stevens eventually opens the door to the cabin and says, "There they are, go and take them." The young man steps in and finds 2 revolvers pointed at his head. His associate realizes what's happened and goes back to his posse, led by John P. Wood, a deputy United States Marshal. The group of 30 men assembled under him were eager for the adventure and the financial reward. Wood sends for reinforcements. One of Brown's men leaves the cabin and goes to a church in Topeka where service has just let out, also looking for reinforcements. Fellow abolitionists join him and ride overnight to the Fuller cabin. Brown is determined to leave and cross nearby Straight Creek. The locals are against the idea, as the creek is high, and Wood's men have set up across the creek, waiting for them. Brown is advised to go up 5 miles, where it's more shallow. Brown disagrees and states, "The Lord has marked out a path for me, and I intend to follow it." Brown looks straight ahead and takes his group across the creek, with some difficulty, but never once looks at Wood's 45 men. Demoralized by Brown's sheer audacity and will, no one fires a single shot. One by one, Wood and his men turn around and leave, leaving Brown and the freedom seekers to continue their path. When word spreads about what happened, the engagement is called the Battle of the Spurs, because the only weapons used by Wood's men were the spurs they put to the horses' flanks when they left. The New York Times advertises that the theatrical hit Our American Cousin is playing the evening of Tuesday, February 1st at Laura Keene's theater. It's a 3-act play written by an English playwright, and Keene plays Florence Trenchard, the daughter of an English aristocrat. The play is a comedy featuring awkward, boorish American Asa Trenchard, who is introduced to his aristocratic English relatives when he goes to England to claim the family estate. Mary Frances Moss was born in England, married, and had 2 daughters. After her husband was imprisoned and sent to Australia, she reinvented herself as Laura Keene and became an actress. She moved to the United States in 1852, where audience and critics applauded her natural and unstagey style, admirable articulation, and a winning voice. By 1853, she became the first female theater manager when she opened the Charles Street Theater in Baltimore, Maryland. She opened her New York theater at the age of 30 with her second husband, John Lutz, who was also her business partner. Our American Cousin has been going continuously for almost 5 months straight, which is over 140 performances. No one has ever presented a play on stage for so many continuous days and months, which will influence Broadway even today. Now, this is an article from the Cleveland Herald on February 1st, 1859, titled "The Slave Market of New Orleans." Now, I'm not going to read all this, but I will invite you to pause the video and stop and take a look. But basically, in the North, most people would never have an opportunity to meet or talk or work with a slave, let alone actually see and be involved in a slave auction. So many northern newspapers would send reporters and friends down, and those that witnessed it, they were asked to take notes and send back up north what they saw so that it could be printed in newspapers and people could actually see what goes on in these auctions, which is despicable because it was human beings selling other human beings. And again, I just invite you to pause the video for a second and read through it so you can get an idea of what that experience was like. And to end our recap, it's now been 4 days after the Battle of the Spurs, and John Brown and his entire group cross into Civil Bend, Iowa. 2 days later, they make it to Tabor, Iowa, where they stay at Reverend John Todd's home. Todd graduated from Oberlin Theological Seminary in Ohio, which is where he became a staunch abolitionist. Brown is no stranger to the route ahead of him, but he is unsure of how he will be received now that he is a wanted man. The danger is not over, but at least they are out of Bleeding, Kansas. And those are just a few of the key things that happened the week of January 31st through February 6th, 1859. Please like, subscribe, and hit the bell to receive notifications when future videos come out. Thank you for watching, and as always, I bid you an affectionate farewell.